Hey, listeners, before we get to today's podcast, I just want to thank our sponsors who make this podcast possible. First off, we have Tiny & Sons Glass. Does your vehicle have cameras or driver's assist? If so, when your windshield is replaced, it will need to be recalibrated. What is recalibration? When your vehicle's windshield is replaced, the safety systems need to then be tested to ensure that they work with your new windshield. Some vehicles require static recalibration, and others require a dynamic recalibration. Not sure who to trust to take care of this recalibration for you? Well, just call Tiny & Sons Glass in Pembroke, Mass. They are experts in auto glass and registered company of the Auto Glass Safety Council. Plus, they make it easy. They will call your insurance company for you. Get your windshield replaced by their highly trained auto glass technicians and get your vehicle recalibrated so you can be back on the road. Tiny & Sons Glass, keeping you and your family safe. And our second sponsor today is Baxter Blue. Do you experience digital eye strain from too much blue light exposure from digital screens? Baxter Blue glasses are not your average frames. These blue light lenses filter 80% of the highest energy blue light, eliminating 99% of the glare. The past year, we've all been glued to our devices more than ever. And here at Inebri-art, we're making more content. We have some video content. We're doing a lot of audio stuff, live streaming, which all means I'm sitting in front of the computer. Pretty much any time I'm awake, I am in front of the computer, eyes glued to the screen. Our exposure to digital light has soared, and our eyes and our sleep are suffering as a result. Baxter Blue is also a force for good and provides a pair of reading glasses for someone in need for every pair sold. This is eyewear built for our digital age, and Baxter Blue is giving our listeners 10% off the next purchase of blue light, sleep, or kids glasses. Click on the link in our show notes for an exclusive discount. This is the sign you have been waiting for to invest in blue light glasses. We know you'll love your Baxters, and we know that you will feel the difference. So thanks again for our sponsors for sponsoring the show, and now let's jump right into the podcast. Welcome back, Inebri-ites. This is Andy, the Inebri-art podcast. And it's crazy to think that a year ago, I had not even known what Zoom is. And now, say like 90% of our podcast is done through Zoom. But today, joining me, am I remembering right that you're in Toronto? You're from New Zealand, right?
Mm-hmm. From New Zealand, yeah.
Yeah. But Merc, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm actually not. Sorry, I'm not in Toronto. I'm in New Zealand.
Oh, you are in New Zealand. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
No, not at all. No, I'm in Auckland, New Zealand. So yeah.
I think it's the time change. So it's got to be like the middle of the night for you, right?
No, it's first thing in the morning. So I've got
okay.
coffee.
There you go.
Slowly waking up. You're slowly easing me into the day, Andy.
Oh, that's what you think.
Yeah.
So. What is there a big music scene in New Zealand? It's one of those places I would love to go eventually, but it's such a long flight.
It's a very long flight. It's a very long and expensive flight, and also these days, that you can't just go do that, can you?
Oh no, yeah, I don't think they'd let Americans go anywhere now.
Yeah, the music scene in New Zealand is great. It's great. Oh, I absolutely adore it. We're quite like isolated from the rest of the world, and so we're quite bored down here, I guess, and so we just have to make do with what we have, and it just means that there's just a lot of really cool, interesting creativity in like a DIY culture.
Mm-hmm.
With like the history of the New Zealand music scene is pretty special. Like we've had, I don't know if you've heard of Flying Nun Records, which is like in the 80s, like a big deal in the indie scene. And they kind of, this little town called Dunedin down in the South Island was just making all of these amazing indie guitar bands that really were super influential all around the world. And then obviously we've got Crowded House and who are a big deal, and just the local scene today is just so many really cool special bands who are doing big things internationally. I feel
Now, do you think that isolation kind of plays into it, where you don't have as much influence kind of telling you what you should and shouldn't do?
I think so. I do, and I say probably like the boredom aspect has a little bit to do with it, but also like just because we are so isolated, you kind of, if you want to do music, you have to kind of be good.
Yeah.
If you like, because it's because it's so expensive to, like we were talking about, it's so expensive and so far away to go anywhere or do anything. So you have to already be at this kind of hopefully kind of at this level where things are good enough where that you can justify doing that. So yeah.
Now, I was just kind of thinking about it, and I feel like, and this could just be my perspective, so you can tell me if it's right or wrong, but it seems like there's a real renaissance with like products of New Zealand, and it kind of reminds me of like British comedy here in, like, I'd say like the 80s and 90s, where it just was like everywhere you went, and now it's like with kind of after the Lord of the Rings, and then you got Taika Waititi and Fly the Conchords. Is it that we just didn't know about it? Was that type of thing always there, or is the creativity higher now in New Zealand, or are we just finding out about it?
I think I don't know, but in particular, but I think it's always been here, and it's been like a part of our culture that's just now kind of, Hollywood has discovered Taika Waititi, and he's making Star Wars movies and Marvel movies and stuff, which is pretty unreal. And Fly the Conchords are winning Grammys, and it's pretty cool. And in fact, I think like we New Zealanders are actually pretty bad at recognizing that sort of stuff until it's internationally recognized. We kind of have like, our culture is we're kind of humble but proud people who like to kind of shoot down anyone who's trying too hard. We call it tall poppy syndrome, where it kind of, if anyone grows above the bunch, then we chop them down. Which is a really, like, it's a kind of not such a great thing about our culture, but when someone starts doing well internationally, we're like, oh yeah, we love them, and start to claim them again.
It sounds very much like a family to me, where like you can shit on your family members anytime but when someone does something good, you're like, yeah, that's my brother or whatever. But
exactly. Yeah, that's the sort of mentality. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
That's cool.
So has music always been something that you've been into? Like what age did you kind of get started?
I didn't really grow up in so much of a music household. My grandfather was a jazz guy, and so he had just like, we would go to his house and he would just have racks and racks of jazz CDs and cassettes and vinyl records of different things. But my parents, not so much. But when did I get into music? I started learning to play the drums at kind of an early age, which was really fun, but it didn't quite click with me. And it wasn't until I was 13, I think, and I started learning guitar that I really kind of had a eureka moment. And that kind of coincided with me discovering a whole lot of music that I'd never heard of before, like, for example, the Beatles. And like, so hearing the Beatles for the first time, it was kind of like almost, I can like pinpoint that exact moment to almost be like my epiphany, to being like, wow, I love this, whatever this is, like, and I want to listen to this all of the time, and I want to be part of this, and I want to be making it. And when I discovered guitar and started playing guitar as opposed to playing the drum kit, I had an instrument that it didn't feel like practice to play anymore, and I could just like watch TV and walk around the house and be carrying it with me and like be practicing while I just did stuff and like be learning my Beatles songs. And yeah, it was kind of that sort of early teenage years that I really discovered music, and then things slowly grew from there, I would say.
It's funny, like I feel like everyone who's really into music, either as a listener or someone who performs, it's always the teenage years where they kind of had that eureka moment. And like I remember, I grew up in the early 90s, so it's like all grunge all the time. But I remember when that first Nirvana "Smells Like Teen Spirit" song broke, like first time I saw it on MTV, and was like,
wow,
there's nothing like this, and it was so different. And I think that was, and it's so weird because like now it's played on like classic rock, which super pisses me off. But what are you gonna do? But yeah, it's so funny how like just that one moment you can kind of trace it.
It's so funny that like when you heard that song, there was something special about that song that just like clicked with you.
Well, I mean, it's a very angsty, angry song. I was a teenager, and it was so like everything else. Like at that point, I was really into like hair metal and heavy metal. So it was like, Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and everything was like overproduced. It was how fast you can play the notes, and Nirvana was just how loud it can be. It was
totally.
Yeah.
But there's a depth there or something that resonates, or like a soul to it, something in that song that like, or in a lot of the Nirvana stuff, that's kind of just like, it's not just impressiveness, is it? It's like not just like technical ability. There's like a soul or a heart aspect about that stuff.
That's like a perfect way to describe it. It's like, sure, it may only be power chords and like whatever, but they expressed more with so little than
Anyway,
so the one thing that I always ask people, because we get a lot of kind of like up and coming artists or lesser known, and it's so hard to, like, again, back in my day, but you go into a record store and there'd be rock, rap, country, and R&B, and those are like your four options. But you can't really group musicians that way anymore. So I always ask, if you were on tour with a known music, like who would you be on tour with that would make sense, that like our listeners could kind of be like, oh, I like that person, and kind of give them like a better perspective.
Totally. I know it's hard. I really feel you. I feel like they always, these days, they say genre is dead. Like everyone's just making stuff, which is cool. If I was on tour, but that's a great question. I think that's a good way to put it. I really love that guy from New York, Porches. I really love, and also Frankie Cosmos. I think there's a cool scene there. I really love Blood Orange. So maybe like these artists are kind of, I guess, in the big umbrella of indie music, but maybe to the left hand side of that or something. I don't know. It's weird.
It's never a good, and it's never an easy question. I'm always just fascinated to hear what people say.
But I think like I'm really inspired by like those artists that are currently making stuff, because they're doing like they're making indie, but it's modern. It feels new and very artistic. So
when I was listening to your stuff earlier, it doesn't sound like, but it made me think of Beck. Like just I don't know whether it's just that the video was kind of like you and singing over the backing tracks, which just kind of is a very Beck like thing, but that's just kind of the area that my head went to. Hopefully that's not an insult.
I love Beck.
Oh.
No, I love Beck, and I think like if there was like I'm very very inspired by Beck, and I especially the sort of career that Beck has. It's like so diverse, but like everything he makes is intrinsically Beck. It's so different, everything he makes, but it always sounds like Beck. So I would personally love to have a career like that where you get to just make stuff that you feel like, but like still it has a unifying factor.
And that's really tough to do without making it all sound, just like a copy of the other songs that you do.
Exactly. I mean, there was that Morning Phase album, which was like a little bit close to Sea Change, but very very beautiful in its own way. And even when I was coming up with a band name Merc, I wanted it to be like Beck because it's just like one short little syllable that's just like a character. Boom.
No, that's funny. You didn't like it. Makes a lot of sense. I didn't make the connection at the time, but yeah, I can totally see that. That's cool.
Yeah.
So when you start writing a new song, are you more apt to kind of focus on lyrics, or do you, mess around on your guitar? Like where do you kind of even begin your process?
I mean, it usually begins like kind of, I mean, it's always different. I'm sure everyone always says that. But like, it's always different. Usually starts kind of late at night on my piano or my guitar, and the iPhone voice memos are a big part of.
I hear more and more people say that. Yeah.
I think I just really, I just like, it's just nice to be able to just capture things very easily. And I also really love the sound of them. They're kind of bad sounding, but they've got something about the compression and the EQ makes everything sound very intimate and sweet. I don't know. But yeah, so that's a big part of it. And I really love personally to have a very strong song before I start recording it, because so I'm like a home producer, or like this is my studio, it's my house. And so the temptation is always to like kind of just like be bumming around on my computer and like just playing and building stuff out of there, but that I find can be like a endless pursuit of like chasing my tail. And so like I really love to have a really strong song, because because I think like that at the end of the day, that's like what matters most is like, is there are there words that mean something? Is there a melody that people can latch onto, and is there a structure that people can follow? And then you've kind of got the foundations for something cool. And like, and then you can then I can jump on my computer and start decorating this house. But like, I don't want to pick the color of the curtains before I have a strong
before you get the windows installed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a good reference. But it's also making me think like the polar opposite. And I've been watching a ton of these videos on YouTube. Is these guys that will loop stuff, and it feels so like in the moment. I don't know whether they practice this. Of course they practice it, but like I don't know how much of it is like thought ahead of time. And it feels like in 15 seconds they have like all their backtracks, and then
a sick track. Yeah, I know, it's pretty amazing. And maybe I think like, I mean, the process I just described has been the process for this most recent record, and maybe my path of growth is kind of forgetting about that and then trying something different. And don't know.
Now, is that something that you tend to do a lot, where you kind of like, well, that's how I do it, I'm gonna throw that away and go in a completely new direction and try and like push yourself to find something new?
Yeah, well, it has been, at least. Like I've finished 2 albums now, and so I haven't had enough experience where I've developed a pattern of that yet, but like between my first and second album was definitely a process of that. So like my first album is very guitar based and fun and very light-hearted and fizzy. And it was like I just made it in my bedroom, or like the spare room of my parents' house. And yeah, making the second record was like a very much a big process of like unlearning, because I really liked what I made in that first record, but I felt like I had made it, and so I didn't need to make any more of that. And so it was quite like, like demolishing that, or like not demolishing it, but it's like taking it down and like re-examining every part of it, and then like building something new out of that, which was quite a lengthy process, but like a really valuable one, I think.
Now, we're Inebri-art here. We always tend to agree to do things before we know how. That seems to be our MO. Now, when you were doing
cool.
kind of your second album and you're kind of doing that reconstruction, was there something that like you wanted to do that you didn't know how, that you kind of had to like learn on the fly?
Totally. Yeah, I feel like I'm always like, my vision is over here, but like my ability is kind of I have to grow to get there. And it was definitely that. I think for this record, it's a lot more honest, and it's a lot more simple, which is actually like, sounds like it would be easier, but it's actually it was at least a lot harder, because like I found with my first record, I was actually kind of, the production is very fun and exciting, but I found that I was actually hiding my true feelings behind all of this fun, and doing like a classic New Zealand thing, like downplaying my emotion and like playing it cool. But with the second record was a process of kind of like having to know myself well enough that I could articulate these big ideas simply in just like a few syllables, like
it's so funny, because it's like going back to that Nirvana thing. It's like saying more with less.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that was like the emo of this, I would say, of this album, is like knowing the concept well enough, or knowing the topic, or knowing myself well enough, which is these big things, like, so that you can articulate it very simply in the production and in the lyrics and the whole thing.
So it sounds like your music's very personal to you. Do you find some of it hard to play because it's like too much of your emotions, or too sensitive? Is that kind of like a thing?
I haven't. I mean, like, I do find it weird, and like a little bit, but like, that's also kind of what's exciting about it as well. It's just kind of like, the fun of it is like, I have something to lose here, I guess. And like that feels exciting, but also very scary and weird, very super weird when you're just talking about stuff. But like, also like, not everything is literally as literal as, it's not like my diary, for example. Right. Like, it's not like a word for word personal record, but like it's stories, but it's like all come from a very sincere and earnest place.
So I hate, it's one of those things. It's like, this is such the elephant in the room lately, is the whole COVID situation. Now, what's it like in New Zealand? Are you guys open amongst yourselves?
We are. We have generally taken quite like a conservative approach. So a year ago in March, we went into like a very extremely strict lockdown. And we have a tiered system of different levels of lockdown, and so we went into our level 4, which is our highest one, and so we spent a month at home, like extremely strict, and since then we've been largely COVID free, which has been amazing. And so we can go to shows, and we can go to tours, like go play tours. I was actually going to had plans to go to South by Southwest last year.
Nice. Yeah.
And we were kind of ramping up. I was actually going to be releasing my album last year, and we were going to South by because there were labels that were interested in working with me and different things. And we played the fundraiser show here in Auckland to raise the money, and then we were just about to go, and it was 3 days away, and then boom, South by's cancelled, Auckland's going into lockdown, and the whole world shut down, and it's whoa, my year and everybody's year changed
it's so funny
overnight.
Last summer I ended up doing so many interviews because everyone who had plans was suddenly free, with nothing to do.
Totally.
It was always I was just wrapped up a tour, or new album coming out. I remember I'm trying to remember who it was. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they were on tour in New York when international travel was getting shut down, and they were from England, and they're we need to get home now. And it was such a weird thing, but it sounds cool that you guys are open and playing shows and stuff.
Yeah and so so we do fluctuate a little bit between the different alert levels. So 2 weeks ago, my region just we had one case in the community, and so so we all shut down really quickly and tried to get rid of that, and then we opened up again. So it was that sort of thing. But I think that's under control now, and so we don't have any community cases, which is pretty cool.
Nice. It sounds like you are all kind of working together, which I'm super jealous of, because I don't know how much you follow America. We're
the
kind of a
messaging
mess.
from the but I mean it's just so big. It's just must be so hard. We have 5 million people, and so it's kind of just having a family chat and being all right guys, we've got to just do this, and then everyone's okay. And there are people that disagree and don't play ball, but in general, it's been pretty good. So what about where you are? What's the latest?
Right now they just so we're giving out vaccines to as many people as quickly as possible. I think they're now doing 65 and over. They did first responders and medical staff and things of that nature. So I'm still waiting for mine, but then just even that has caused the numbers to creep down really significantly. And
amazing.
So they opened restaurants to, they say full capacity, but you still have to keep a 6 foot distance between tables. So it's still probably kind of a 50% capacity, but it's, however you can to make it work. The town I'm living in is going forward with outdoor dining.
Cool.
Which from a, downtown standpoint, it's awesome, but we'll see if it continues. And the big thing has been music. Like I said, I live right near Plymouth Rock, and it's a big tourist community. So there's, I think I counted one day, and there's over 40 bars within a mile stretch of these two particular roads. And most of them have music at least 3 nights a week. And so there's tons of musicians in this area, and so they've been out of work for a year plus, and they opened it up, and so musicians started playing and booking gigs, and then right away they were whoa, we didn't mean to do that, and they backed it up. And so there's been this real weird moment, because even the governor even said that it was probably going to be another 2 weeks, but people have already booked gigs. So some gigs are going on and just being real hush hush about it. So it's just a very strange.
Wow.
Yeah.
So strange. Yeah. So strange. Yeah. I mean, it's so weird to think about what it's gonna what's happening to the music industry in general, and the music community. super strange. Like I played my friend's wedding. I was in the party band for my friend's wedding this weekend, and
Yeah.
I just like felt the rustiness of not having played a gig in a year. You know, like I just felt so out of practice. It just like, oh, it was such a weird feeling, and I think that's like the entire world like of musicians
big
right
time.
now.
Yeah. We started. I think it was January. We started doing weekly live streams of musicians, and we partnered with a liquor store in town here, and we do it from the liquor store. And so the musicians come in, we put up a Venmo and try and get them, tips and people help support local music. And it's so funny because they're all like panicky coming in, like I haven't played, and they're forgetting lyrics and forgetting songs, and but it's been a lot of fun because we're not very serious people, so we just kind of like have a laugh and
fun,
soldier forward. But
sounds wholesome.
Yeah, I don't know if it's wholesome. But yeah, it's and all the musicians have like they're like, you guys make it feel so comfortable, and just because we're super serious, and it's not like it's something when it becomes like sort of practice, but not really,
Yeah.
Have you been doing any of the live stream type things that a lot of musicians have been doing?
A little bit. I did more so last year when like New Zealand was in a really intense lockdown. But yeah, I have been doing little bits and bobs here and there. Like if it's Bandcamp Friday, I might just like do one to kind of help share about like the album pre-orders and different things. Yeah, it's been I've actually really loved doing that. And it's like in some ways, like obviously not in all ways, but like in some ways it's like almost more intimate than performing with people, because they can just talk to each other and talk to you while you're playing your songs. And like, I don't know, not often do you, like in a live setting, you don't just have people talking to you and you talk back to them. And like, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the things that like we've really found that the musicians liked is, so they're kind of set up away from us to be COVID friendly, and so I'll mic myself and I'll be the one monitoring the Facebook feed, and so I'll be able to be like, oh, this person says this, and chit chat back and forth, and so it is that kind of very intimate hang with friends.
Direct kind of feed into which can be weird when you're like playing a song and you're just like seeing all these comments coming, like it's like quite weird, but like super cool in its own way, for sure.
Yeah, so our most recent screw up, we had a band in, and they have a female singer, but she doesn't sing in all the songs, and so my producer had muted her mic because she was not playing a song at that moment or singing a song at that moment. And then he stepped away from the board, and I had no idea he did it. So she stepped back on, and it was, was it True Colors? It was definitely a Cyndi Lauper song.
Yeah. Wow.
It was about 3 seconds before the song was over, and I happened to look at the chat, and it's just like, can't hear her. Is this an instrumental? What's going on? And I'm like,
oh no.
But to her credit, she was super cool about it, and
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. Oh, it's the way it goes, though. It's like the tech issues on the live stream are always the thing,
So the new album it'll be out by the time this episode goes out for sure. Cool. Do you have plans to follow it with a tour? Like what's that going to be like this year?
We're going to be doing a New Zealand tour, and with the hopes of getting overseas later this year or early next year. But yeah, we'll be setting off down the country, which will be super fun. And yeah, it's out April 9, so it's probably out by now if you listen to this.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, it'll definitely be out by then. So
cool. Cool. Yeah.
So have you you said you toured overseas before. Is
Mm-hmm.
that like a whole nother mess of problems? Because I can't remember. I was talking about someone in it, and it's a YouTube personality who's gone on tour. I think they're from Finland, and we're touring here in the US a couple years ago. And I'm like, I can't. Do you ship everything over? Like how do you even start with that?
Oh, it's like a hustle. It's a hustle. You just like bring whatever you can in your luggage. Put your clothes in your backpack, and then hope to find a drum kit on the other side. And like, yeah, like just like try and borrow and like ask as many favors as you can, and yeah, it can be quite the hustle, but it's like not like what I love, what like sounds so cool about you guys in the States is that, you know, you can almost jump in a van and then tour nonstop indefinitely because you can just do the whole thing and then do it again.
Yeah.
And so, but for us, it's quite a big deal. And like, but there is lots of amazing funding here in New Zealand from the government to go do like international touring and
really?
Things. Yeah, it's really cool.
That's neat.
They kind of really like, you know, they see that there is actually like a benefit in investing in the arts, like because like when you get a Taika Waititi who's like, you know, done such great things for New Zealand, like all of a sudden like that investment kind of makes
like
sense. You know,
Peter Jackson. I mean,
Peter Jackson.
How much tourism has he brought? It's got to be incredible.
Quite a lot. Quite a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you get tired of answering Lord of the Rings questions?
I mean, like, I like Lord of the Rings a lot, and I think it's cool. I didn't like The Hobbit as much, but
it wasn't because it wasn't as good.
it
just wasn't.
Yeah, but I'm a fan.
Nice. So since we're talking films and you have videos, like how much, like, do you do videos because you have to? Is it something that you're interested in? And like,
no, I think it's a great art form and something that I'm kind of like diving more and more into. Like, throughout throughout making music videos, I've kind of become more and more involved in until now. I've kind of almost started doing them, like now directing them alongside like some people who know how to work a camera and things. But yeah, it's super fun. I've been loving it.
You know, it's such a fun time because anything you want to do, you can spend, you know, a day or two like poking around on YouTube and be like, I know enough to at least get my feet wet and start messing around. And
exactly. Yeah, super fun. Like, I think I made one of the videos for a song called God, and I like just like it was me filming a old CRT TV with like, and like just running all this footage through like vintage glitch effects units, and I had no idea what I was doing at the start of it, but like you say, like I just like sunk the time in, and I just like was up till 2 a.m. and, you know, like just to it, like just messing around, and like had so much time to have fun and experiment, and then like edit some weird thing together. Yeah, super cool.
And it's so funny. Like, you just made me think, like, because we're always doing new stuff, and so we've been shooting on some green screen, and the most obvious thing that like it's so obvious where you're like, what was I even thinking? Like, okay, don't wear a green sweatshirt in front of a green screen. Like, it's not the same green, but it's green enough.
Totally.
And then you're like, oh,
love that.
Yeah. So it's always and it's fun. Like, I suppose if it wasn't fun, I wouldn't do it. Right.
Totally. And I find it fun to be like bad at something, you know, like have something that like, or like you don't know, and like kind of be learning. It's quite cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's fun to be bad at something because I feel like you learn more faster when you're bad. You know,
totally.
Then you kind of hit that plateau.
And also like totally. And also, but it also like gives you like a perspective that like a pro wouldn't have, you know, like someone who's super technically capable and knows everything, knows all the rules and like rules,
Right.
you know, like, but if you don't know how to do something, you can just like make stuff and like follow your heart a little bit. Like when I, you know, like oftentimes you hear people who don't know much about music, but they've written a song and it's just like, whoa, how did you come up with that? Like,
Yeah.
because they just doing what they feel. Whereas like, you know, if you have a musical knowledge, you already know the rules and like subconsciously, I guess you kind of like you like playing by those rules a little bit.
This
but
is where the chorus goes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you don't know all of that stuff, you're just doing what feels right, and like that's kind of cool.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
So where can our listeners go to find your music or socials and all that sort of promoting stuff?
It's like at Merc's Cool Songs is most of the socials. Merc Perk is my Instagram, and but yeah, just Merc on Spotify, Apple Music, all the streaming platforms, YouTube,
all those music places.
Yeah. Bandcamp is, you know, obviously the best way to
I've heard Bandcamp
artists.
seems to be the one that really stands out as far as taking the least or giving you guys the most or that sort of thing.
Totally. Yeah, it's like kind of just like a direct to artist thing, which is really, really cool. But yeah, come say hi and flick me a message if you want. I like chatting and
nice.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time, man. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
When you actually get to the United States, if you hit the Boston area, let me know. I know guys with some drum kits.
Cool. Very cool. I will be hitting you up for that. Thanks,
sure.
Andy.
Awesome, man.
So fun to chat.
Yeah. Thank you. And thanks to everyone for listening today. We'll catch you guys again next week. Thanks for listening to today's podcast. You can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or on Instagram at Inebri-art6. You can email us at Inebri-art@yahoo.com. And make sure you listen to the other podcasts on the Inebri-art Podcast Network, including Bar Talk, Old Colony Cast, Retro Redoctopus, America's Hometown Horror Podcast, and our newest one, Theme Park Legends, a podcast about working at theme parks. What else? And we'll catch you again next time.